The Stranger at Willow Creek. Willow Creek was a quiet, picturesque town, nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling river. Every morning, the sun rose over the lush, green landscape, painting a beautiful picture of serenity and timeless beauty. This tranquil place was home to Thomas Harper, a retired school teacher in his late 60s, known for his kind heart and gentle demeanor. After the passing of his beloved wife, Margaret, Thomas lived alone in a small cottage, filled with memories and love. Surrounded by a white picket fence and blooming flower beds, he tended to with devotion. Thomas's days were simple, filled with quiet routines. He spent his time maintaining his garden, reading old books, and most importantly, visiting his son's grave in the local cemetery, just a few miles away. His son, Michael, had been his pride and joy, a bright young man full of dreams and compassion. The loss of Michael had left an empty ache in Thomas's heart that not even time could heal. Visiting his grave had become Thomas's way of keeping him close, of sharing his thoughts, and perhaps of seeking the semblance of solace in his otherwise empty life. One golden afternoon, as he walked towards the cemetery, he noticed a pair of young women sitting by Michael's grave. They sat close together, their shoulders gently shaking as they held each other for comfort. Thomas's heart sank. He didn't recognize them, and he was overcome with a strange mix of worry and curiosity. Who were they? What could possibly bring strangers to his son's grave? He approached them slowly, not wanting to intrude on their moment, but too curious to simply turn away. As he drew nearer, he noticed they were holding a small framed photograph, their eyes fixed on it as they whispered softly between themselves. The photograph was worn, edges frayed, as if it had been handled countless times before. Thomas cleared his throat gently, hoping not to startle them, and spoke softly. "Excuse me," he said, his voice gentle and full of concern. "I couldn't help but notice. You're at my son's grave. May I ask if you knew Michael?" The two young women looked up in surprise, their tear-streaked faces mirroring the sadness Thomas had lived with for years. One of them spoke first, her voice breaking with emotion as she wiped a stray tear from her cheek. "We're so sorry, sir. We didn't mean to intrude," she said softly. "It's just that we believe your son may have been the one who saved our lives." Thomas's heart skipped a beat. He had known Michael was a kind soul, brave and compassionate, but he had never known the true details of his death. He had been told that Michael drowned while attempting to help someone, but no one had ever come forward to confirm it. Now, staring into the tearful eyes of these young women, he felt a flicker of hope and an ache of longing to finally understand his son's final moments. "Please, don't apologize," Thomas managed, his voice filled with a mixture of warmth and pain. "I'm Thomas Harper, Michael's father. If you're willing, I'd love to hear your story. It would mean the world to me." The two women introduced themselves as Lily and Rose. They were identical twins, now in their early 20s. As they began to recount their story, Thomas felt as though he was being transported back in time, to a night he desperately tried to make sense of for years. "It was 5 years ago," Lily began, her voice soft, filled with the weight of memory. "We were in college, studying late, and we left for home in the middle of the night. The road was wet from rain, and it was pitch dark. We didn't see the turn coming up, and our car skidded off the road and into the river." Rose picked up where her sister had left off, her voice trembling as she recalled the terror of that night. "Water was rising quickly around us. We were trapped and couldn't get out. The car had landed in such a way that we couldn't break the windows or open the doors. We thought that was the end." They both fell silent, memories filling the air with an almost tangible weight. Thomas listened, his heart pounding as he clung to every word, desperate to understand how his son fit into this tragic picture. But then, Lily continued, her eyes glistening. "A stranger appeared. He dove into the water without hesitation. We never even saw his face clearly, but he pulled us from the car one at a time. His strength was remarkable, and his courage, We were saved because of him." Thomas's vision blurred as tears filled his eyes. He could picture Michael, brave and selfless, diving into the cold, dark water, determined to help these two young women. He was both heartbroken and proud, finally seeing the full extent of his son's sacrifice. Rose took a deep breath and looked at Thomas with gratitude and sorrow in her eyes. "We never got to thank him," she said, her voice cracking. "He saved our lives, but as he was pulling us out, the current was too strong. It swept him away before he could reach the shore." Thomas felt the weight of this revelation settle over him, a mix of grief and pride swelling in his chest. It was both agonizing and beautiful to know that Michael had given his life to save others, a heroic act that perfectly encapsulated the son he had raised. "We came here today to find him, or at least to pay our respects," Rose continued. "We didn't know his name, but we found his grave by following the date. We knew it had to be him." She held up the photograph again, a silent tribute to the man who had saved their lives. "We wanted him to know that we've never forgotten, and will always be grateful." Thomas's voice trembled as he finally spoke. "Thank you for sharing this with me," he said, his eyes filled with tears. "I always knew Michael was special, but hearing your story, it gives me a new understanding of just how brave he was. I think he would be so touched to know you're here." The three of them sat in silence, absorbing the shared weight of grief, gratitude, and admiration. Despite the sadness, there was an unexpected warmth between them, a bond that, although born of tragedy, carried a sense of peace. The cemetery, once a place that held only sorrow for Thomas, now felt different. It was as though Michael's presence had extended beyond his grave, touching the lives of those he'd saved and binding them to Thomas in an unexpected, poignant way. He no longer felt alone in his mourning, but rather as part of a circle, united by love and courage. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the cemetery, Thomas found himself feeling a glimmer of hope, the first he'd felt in years. He invited Lily and Rose back to his cottage for tea, eager to hear more about their lives and share stories about Michael. They accepted gratefully, and as they walked away from the grave, Thomas felt the beginnings of a new chapter, a chapter that, while rooted in loss, was growing from love and connection, a shared legacy of love and loss. As they walked along the winding path toward Thomas's cottage, Lily and Rose took in the sights of Willow Creek, this quiet town that Michael had once called home. The air was filled with the faint scent of blooming wildflowers, and birds chirped softly in the evening light. They felt a strange mix of sadness and tranquility as they imagined what it must have been like for Michael to grow up in this place, surrounded by the same gentle hills and peaceful landscapes. Thomas's cottage came into view, nestled near the end of a narrow lane bordered by tall, swaying trees. The little house was cozy, with ivy climbing up the stone walls and flowers blooming along the pathway. A sense of warmth radiated from the place, as if every inch of it was filled with the love and memories of the family who had once lived there together. The three of them stepped inside, and Thomas invited the twins to make themselves comfortable in the living room. The room was filled with photographs that told a story of family, of love, and of countless shared moments. There was Michael as a toddler, with his chubby cheeks and wide grin, holding a little toy car. A picture of him as a teenager, proudly wearing a baseball cap, his arm around his sister Sarah, both of them beaming at the camera. And another of Michael as an adult, standing on a mountaintop, looking adventurous and full of life. As Thomas poured tea into 3 delicate cups, he couldn't help but feel a strange comfort in their company. These young women, saved by his son's bravery, seemed almost like a bridge connecting him to Michael's final act. It was as if Michael, in his selfless way, had gifted Thomas this unexpected friendship, a shared bond rooted in both sorrow and gratitude. "Thank you for inviting us," Rose said quietly, accepting her cup. "This means so much to us. We never imagined we'd find a connection to him like this." Thomas nodded, his gaze lingering on the photograph of Michael. "He would have loved meeting you both. Michael was always one to make friends wherever he went, There was a warmth about him that people were drawn to. Kindness was simply in his nature. Lily smiled softly. It's strange, but hearing that, I feel as if we already know him. The fact that he risked his life for two strangers says so much about the kind of person he was. A heavy silence settled over them, one that felt comforting rather than burdensome. Thomas felt an urge to share more of his son's life, as if speaking about Michael might keep him present in the room with them. Michael was always adventurous, Thomas began, his voice full of nostalgia. Ever since he was a boy, he had a thirst for life and a love of exploring the world. When he finished college, he announced that he was going to travel. At first, Margaret, my late wife, and I were worried, but we knew we couldn't hold him back. He wanted to see and experience everything this world had to offer. The twins leaned in, captivated, as Thomas recounted stories of Michael's travels, how he climbed mountains in Peru, volunteered at an orphanage in India, and even taught English to children in a remote village in Africa. Every place he visited had left a mark on him, and he brought back stories, souvenirs, and a heart full of compassion. He would come home with gifts, little trinkets from every place he'd been. Thomas said, his eyes softening. He'd hand each one to us with such excitement, telling us about the people he'd met, the food he'd tried, the kindness he'd found in strangers. He believed that kindness was universal, a language everyone spoke. Rose's eyes glistened as she listened. I can see why he'd risk his life to save others. It sounds like he saw the best in everyone. Thomas nodded, his gaze distant. Yes, he taught me that too. Even in the simplest moments, he would find beauty. And now I find comfort in knowing that his kindness lives on, that it wasn't lost that night. Lily set down her cup, her expression earnest. I want you to know, Mr. Harper, that we carry what he did for us every single day. There are so many things in our lives we wouldn't have had if he hadn't saved us. I don't think a day goes by that we don't think about him. Thomas felt a wave of emotion rise within him. Please, call me Thomas. And thank you for saying that. It means more to me than I can express. A gentle knock at the door broke the silence. Thomas glanced toward the door, a little surprised. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened it, he was met with the sight of his daughter, Sarah, standing on the doorstep. She was in her 30s, with a warm smile and eyes that held a hint of Michael's kindness. Dad, I just wanted to stop by and... She paused, noticing the twins sitting in the living room. Her gaze shifted back to Thomas, questioning but curious. Sarah, Thomas said, his voice soft. I'd like you to meet Lily and Rose. They're the two young women Michael saved. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth as she processed her father's words. Slowly, she stepped forward, her eyes welling with tears as she took in the sight of the twins, who stood up to meet her. Without hesitation, Sarah opened her arms, and the three women embraced, a silent understanding passing between them, a bond forged from tragedy, gratitude, and love. After they settled back into their seats, Sarah joined them, her face a mixture of sadness and relief. I don't think I ever let myself believe that someone, anyone, would come forward. I just wanted to thank him somehow, to know that he made a difference. And now, seeing you two here, it brings me a peace I didn't think I'd ever feel. Rose placed a comforting hand on Sarah's. Your brother saved us, Sarah. And because of him, we've been able to live lives we're grateful for. We wouldn't be here today if it weren't for his courage. The four of them shared stories late into the night, each tale a small window into Michael's life and the lives he had touched. Sarah shared memories of growing up with him, their sibling adventures, his gentle teasing, and the way he'd always looked out for her, even when they argued. She described how, even as kids, Michael would go out of his way to help others, whether it was carrying groceries for an elderly neighbor or giving his lunch to a friend who forgot theirs. We may have lost him, but we also gained so much because of him, Sarah said, her voice breaking slightly. He was always a hero to me, in the way only a big brother can be. But now I know he truly was one. In a quieter moment, Lily and Rose shared their own dreams with Thomas and Sarah, wanting to honor Michael's memory in a way that reflected his courage and kindness. "I'm studying to become a doctor," Lily shared, a spark of determination in her eyes. "I want to save lives just as Michael saved ours. I want to give back, to be there for others in their most vulnerable moments. I think that's what he would want me to do." Rose smiled at her sister's ambition, then looked to Thomas. "And I'm studying to become a teacher, like you, Thomas. I want to inspire others and show them kindness, just as Michael did. I want to make a difference in people's lives, no matter how small." Thomas felt a surge of pride as he listened to them. In these two young women, he could see the same spirit of compassion and courage that had defined his son. It was as though Michael's legacy had found a way to live on in them, to inspire and guide them on their journeys. As the night wore on, they each took turns sharing their dreams, memories, and visions for the future. It was a night filled with tears and laughter, with long silences and heartfelt words. They found themselves bound together, not only by Michael's sacrifice, but by a shared commitment to keep his spirit alive through acts of kindness and love. When it was time for Lily and Rose to leave, they stood at the door, hesitating for a moment. Lily turned back to Thomas and took his hand, her voice filled with emotion. "Thank you for letting us into your life, Thomas. Meeting Sarah, it's more than we ever hoped for." Thomas gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "It's I who should be thanking you, for giving me back a piece of my son, for letting me see his legacy in such beautiful lives." As they walked down the path, Thomas and Sarah stood in the doorway, watching them leave. The night was silent, and the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if Michael himself were smiling down on them. "I feel like he's here with us, Dad," Sarah whispered, her voice full of wonder. "Like he's still watching over us, bringing people into our lives just when we need them most." Thomas nodded, a peaceful smile on his face. "Yes, Sarah, I think he always will be." And as they turned to go back inside, Thomas felt a sense of healing he hadn't known was possible. In Lily and Rose, he had found a way to keep Michael's memory alive, not only in grief, but in gratitude and purpose. For the first time in years, he felt as though the path forward was filled not just with memories of what was lost, but with the promise of what could still be. A bond beyond blood. The following weeks brought a flurry of life and warmth into Thomas Harper's world in ways he had never expected. His days, once filled with quiet solitude and carefully tended routines, were now punctuated by lively visits from Lily and Rose. Their bond, woven by shared grief and gratitude, began to deepen, transforming strangers into something like family. For the first time in years, Thomas felt as though his heart was beginning to heal, that he was learning to live beyond the shadow of loss. One afternoon, Thomas invited Lily and Rose to join him in organizing Michael's belongings. It was a task he put off for years, one that felt like too heavy a reminder of the life he'd lost. But with the twins by his side, he felt a newfound strength, a readiness to confront the memories he'd long tucked away. Together, they opened boxes filled with Michael's things, journals he'd kept while traveling, souvenirs from distant lands, and letters he'd written but never sent. The items were worn, marked by the adventure and enthusiasm with which Michael had embraced life. Each piece held a story, a glimpse into the son they had loved so deeply. "Look at this," Thomas said, pulling out a worn, leather-bound journal. The cover was scuffed, the pages dog-eared, as though it had been cherished and read over and over. He passed it to Rose, his eyes filled with both sadness and pride. Michael kept journals from every trip he took. He would always bring them home and share his experiences with us, but there were some stories he never shared. Stories he said he wanted us to read someday when he was gone. Rose traced the cover of the journal, feeling a strange reverence for the pages that held Michael's thoughts and dreams. She opened it carefully, and together they read the first few entries, which recounted his time in Thailand. He described the kindness of strangers, the taste of street food, and the beauty of the temples he had visited. As they continued reading, they discovered a passage about a family he had met in a remote village. Michael had stayed with them for a few days, helping them build a well and learning about their way of life. He wrote about the humility he felt in their presence, the simplicity of their lives, and how it had changed his perspective on his own life. "I can't help but wonder," Rose whispered, "how someone like Michael, someone so selfless, could have had his life cut short." Thomas put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I used to wonder the same thing, Rose, but I've come to believe that Michael's purpose was to touch as many lives as he could in the time he had. In a way, he lives on through every act of kindness, every life he impacted." Lily looked up, a thought stirring in her mind. Maybe we can help others the way he did. Maybe there's a way to carry on his legacy, to keep his memory alive through our actions. Thomas smiled, a sense of purpose sparking within him. "I think Michael would love that." He believed in the power of kindness, in making the world a better place. It's up to us now to carry on that belief. The idea stayed with them, growing like a seed, and over the next few days, they began discussing ways to honor Michael's legacy. Thomas had never been one to organize events or draw attention to himself, but with Lily and Rose's encouragement, he found himself warming to the idea of starting something that could bring people together. They envisioned a small community initiative, something that would encourage acts of kindness, unity, and remembrance. In a conversation with Sarah, they shared their idea, hoping she would feel the same excitement. "A foundation," Sarah said thoughtfully, her eyes lighting up. "A foundation in Michael's name, where people can come together to give back, to support one another, to spread the kindness he was known for." Thomas felt a surge of warmth as he looked at his daughter and the twins, seeing the shared purpose in their eyes. "I think he would be proud of us for doing this. We'll call it the Michael Harper Foundation." The idea quickly gained momentum, and soon word spread around Willow Creek. Townsfolk who remembered Michael as a young boy were eager to get involved, touched by the idea of honoring his memory. Local businesses offered to support them with donations. The town's newspaper featured a heartfelt article about Michael's story, and people from all corners of Willow Creek came forward with offers to volunteer their time and resources. One day, as they were making plans for the foundation's launch event, Thomas received an unexpected visitor. A young man named Alex, dressed in the uniform of an emergency medical technician, arrived at Thomas's doorstep, his eyes filled with a mixture of nervousness and determination. "Mr. Harper?" Alex asked, his voice soft but steady. "I'm sorry to intrude, but I have wanted to meet you for a long time." Thomas invited him inside, sensing a familiarity in his face, a certain recognition he couldn't quite place. As they sat down, Alex took a deep breath, his hands clasped tightly together. "I was the paramedic on duty the night of your son's accident," Alex began, his voice shaking slightly. "I was there when he saved those two women. I tried to help him, but—" He paused, struggling to find the words. "I couldn't get to him in time." Thomas felt a pang of sorrow but reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Alex's shoulder. "Thank you for being there. It must have been so difficult, but knowing that Michael wasn't alone, that he had someone trying to save him, it means a lot to me." Alex looked down, his eyes filled with regret. "I've carried that night with me ever since. I wanted to honor his memory, to find a way to live up to the example he set. I've tried to live my life with that same courage, to make a difference where I can. I'm studying to become a doctor now, to help people like he helped those young women." A sense of pride swelled within Thomas, and he could feel Michael's spirit in the room, as if he were silently watching over them, bringing people together even in death. "Michael would be proud of you, Alex, and I know he'd want you to be part of this foundation, to carry on his legacy." Over the coming weeks, Alex joined the group as they prepared for the foundation's inaugural event. Together, they worked tirelessly, meeting at Thomas's cottage to brainstorm ideas, organize resources, and plan activities. Each of them brought a unique perspective. Sarah, with her experience in teaching and her desire to inspire young people. Lily, with her determination to pursue medicine and help those in need. Rose, with her vision of building a compassionate community. And Alex, driven by a desire to honor Michael through his own journey in medicine. The day of the launch arrived, a sunny Saturday that seemed tailor-made for the occasion. The event was held at Willow Creek Park, a picturesque area surrounded by trees, with a sparkling lake at its center. Volunteers set up tables adorned with photographs of Michael, flowers, and a banner that read, "The Michael Harper Foundation, spreading kindness, inspiring bravery." People from all over Willow Creek and neighboring towns gathered, eager to show their support and remember the man who had left a lasting impact on their lives. Local families came with their children, students from the school brought handmade cards and drawings, and the townsfolk brought donations and words of encouragement. Some even shared their own stories of Michael, recalling his kindness, his warmth, and his boundless love for life. Thomas felt a surge of pride as he looked around, seeing the community he had known for decades come together, united by a shared respect for his son. In their faces, he could see the love and admiration they held for Michael, a testament to the life he had led. At the center of the event was a kindness tree, a large oak tree where attendees could write notes of kindness, hope, and gratitude and tie them to the branches. The notes fluttered in the gentle breeze, creating a beautiful tapestry of love and remembrance. The tree stood as a living tribute to Michael, a symbol of the connections he had fostered and the legacy he had left behind. Lily stepped up to the microphone, her voice carrying across the gathering. She shared the story of the night Michael saved her and her sister, how his bravery had given them a second chance at life, and how their lives had been forever changed by his kindness. Rose followed, speaking of their gratitude, their determination to carry on his legacy, and the friendships they had forged in his honor. When it was Thomas's turn to speak, he took a deep breath, feeling both the weight of loss and the warmth of love. His voice was steady, filled with pride as he looked out at the crowd. "My son was a man of compassion and courage. He believed in kindness, in making the world a better place, one act at a time. Today, we come together not just to remember him, but to carry on his work, to live by the values he held dear. Michael's light lives on in each of you, in every act of kindness, every moment of courage, and every connection we make. This foundation is not just about one life. It's about how one life can touch so many." As he finished, the crowd erupted in applause, a wave of love and support that filled the park. Thomas felt Michael's presence more strongly than ever, as if he were standing right beside him, smiling. The day was filled with activities, from kindness-themed workshops to community service sign-ups and booths where people could learn more about volunteering for the Foundation's projects. Families planted trees in Michael's memory. Children painted stones with messages of hope, and friends gathered to share stories and memories. As the sun began to set, Thomas, Sarah, Lily, Rose, and Alex stood together by the lake, watching the golden light reflect off the water. They held hands, feeling the strength of their shared bond, the love that had grown from sorrow, and the purpose they had found together. In that moment, Thomas knew that Michael's legacy would continue to live on, not just through the Foundation, but through every life he had touched. And though he would always miss his son, he found comfort in the thought that Michael's spirit would forever be a part of them, guiding them toward kindness, compassion, and courage. The ripple of kindness. In the weeks following the Foundation's launch, the Michael Harper Foundation quickly became a force for good in Willow Creek, creating a ripple of kindness that extended far beyond the town's borders. What had started as a small gathering in a park had evolved into a movement, one that encouraged people to look beyond themselves and reach out to others with compassion. Each day, Thomas, Sarah, Lily, Rose, and Alex witnessed the growing impact of the Foundation, and they felt Michael's spirit in every act of generosity, every shared story, and every bond forged in his name. Their initial project, the Kindness Tree, became a permanent installation in Willow Creek Park. It was no longer just a simple oak tree adorned with messages of love and gratitude. It had transformed into a living testament to Michael's memory. Visitors tied handwritten notes, expressing everything from personal struggles to words of encouragement for strangers, creating a beautiful mosaic of human connection. People from all walks of life came to the tree to share their thoughts, their hopes, and their promises to do better, to be kinder, to honor the legacy of a man they had never met but felt they somehow knew. One afternoon, as Thomas visited the Kindness Tree, he noticed a young woman standing nearby, staring at the notes tied to the branches. She held a folded paper in her hands, her gaze distant, as if she were lost in thought. Something about her struck Thomas. Perhaps it was the sadness in her eyes, or maybe the way she lingered, seemingly unsure of whether to leave her message on the tree or keep it to herself. Thomas approached her gently, offering a warm smile. "Hello there. I see you have something to add to the tree." The young woman looked up, startled, but then relaxed when she saw the kindness in his eyes. "Yes, I do. I'm not sure what to write, or even if I should." Thomas gestured to the tree, now covered in hundreds of colorful notes, each one a testament to the power of vulnerability and hope. "This tree is a place for everyone. Whatever you want to share, whatever you're holding in your heart, it's welcome here." She nodded, still hesitant. "I lost someone close to me last year. He was my fiancé, and it's been hard to move on. I haven't known where to put all this grief. But seeing this tree, reading these messages, it feels like maybe there's a place for it here." Thomas's heart went out to her, and he reached out, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Grief can be heavy to carry alone. I lost my son 5 years ago. I've learned that sharing that pain doesn't make it go away, but it makes it bearable. And through this foundation, through the people I've met, I found a way to keep his memory alive, to feel his presence in every act of kindness that springs from his legacy." The young woman smiled faintly, a hint of relief softening her face. She unfolded her note, tied it to a low-hanging branch, and stepped back to read it once more. It read, "To those we love and lose, they live on in the kindness we share with others." Thomas felt a swell of emotion as he read her words, a reminder that Michael's impact wasn't just personal, it was universal. Michael's legacy was alive not only in his family and friends, but in everyone who found comfort and inspiration through the Foundation's work. It was a profound realization, and it filled Thomas with a renewed sense of purpose. The Foundation's reach continued to expand, and soon the team began organizing new projects, each one inspired by Michael's values of compassion, courage, and selflessness. They hosted monthly community meals, where people from all walks of life could come together to share food, stories, and friendship. What began as a simple event grew into a beloved tradition, a gathering that fostered connections between neighbors who might never have otherwise met. Elderly residents, young families, and newcomers alike found a place where they belonged, a place that Michael had indirectly created through his legacy. Meanwhile, Sarah launched an educational initiative aimed at teaching young people about the power of kindness and resilience. Drawing from her background as a teacher, she organized workshops and seminars for local schools, introducing students to the concept of Michael's Challenge, a simple daily act of kindness that encouraged students to find ways to help others, no matter how small. One Friday afternoon, Sarah visited Willow Creek Elementary School to introduce the challenge. The students gathered excitedly in the gymnasium, their faces filled with curiosity. Sarah spoke to them about her brother, sharing stories of his adventurous spirit and his unwavering kindness. She described the bravery he had shown, the sacrifices he had made, and how even after his passing, he continued to inspire others to make a difference. After her talk, Sarah handed out small cards to each student. Each card had a different prompt, encouraging acts of kindness. Help someone with their homework. Invite a new friend to sit with you at lunch. Write a thank you note to a teacher. The children were thrilled, their excitement filling the room as they read their cards and discussed their plans with each other. One student, a shy boy named Oliver, approached Sarah after the talk, clutching his card nervously. His card read, "Give a compliment to someone who looks like they need it." "Miss Harper," Oliver said softly, "I don't think I'm good at giving compliments. I'm not sure what to say." Sarah knelt down to his level, offering him an encouraging smile. "Compliments don't have to be big or fancy, Oliver. Just say something kind. It could be as simple as, 'I like your smile,' or 'You're a good friend.' What matters is that you mean it, that you're sincere." Oliver nodded, looking a little braver, and promised to give it a try. In the days that followed, Sarah received a letter from Oliver's mother, thanking her for the workshop. She explained that her son, who was usually quiet and reserved, had come home excited to share his act of kindness. He had complimented a new student in his class, and it had sparked a friendship that made a world of difference to both boys. Sarah shared the letter with Thomas, Lily, Rose, and Alex, each of them touched by the impact of a simple act of kindness. It was a reminder that Michael's legacy didn't have to be grand gestures or big events. It could live on in the smallest of moments, in words spoken with love and actions taken with compassion. The Foundation's next project was Alex's idea. Inspired by his journey as a paramedic and his dedication to becoming a doctor, he proposed creating a scholarship fund for young people in Willow Creek who wanted to pursue careers in medicine, social work, and other fields dedicated to helping others. The scholarship fund was called the Harper Bravery Scholarship, in honor of Michael's courage and selflessness. Alex was determined to support young people who shared that same drive to make a difference, to save lives, and to inspire change. The scholarship fund quickly gained traction, with donations pouring in from townsfolk, local businesses, and even neighboring communities. The foundation organized a fundraiser to support the scholarship, a gala that brought together everyone from the town's mayor to local teachers and firefighters. It was a grand event, filled with laughter, stories, and a palpable sense of unity. During the gala, Thomas gave a speech about Michael, sharing memories of his son's kindness and courage. He spoke of the night Michael had saved Lily and Rose, how his selflessness had been a beacon of hope, and how that hope had grown into the foundation they now stood behind. His words touched everyone present, and by the end of the evening, the scholarship fund had exceeded its goal, ensuring that future generations of compassionate leaders would have the opportunity to follow in Michael's footsteps. But the foundation's reach extended even further. Inspired by the stories and connections that had blossomed in Willow Creek, other towns began creating their own initiatives to foster kindness and community. People across the country heard about the Michael Harper Foundation and were moved to start similar projects, each one dedicated to helping others and spreading compassion. Back in Willow Creek, the foundation continued to thrive. Thomas, Sarah, Lily, Rose, and Alex worked tirelessly, dedicating themselves to the cause with unwavering commitment. Each new project, each act of kindness, and each story of connection reminded them of Michael's legacy and of the profound impact one life could have. One winter evening, as they gathered at Thomas's cottage for their weekly meeting, Rose shared a letter she had received from a young woman named Emily, who had benefited from the Foundation's kindness initiatives. Emily had been struggling with depression, feeling lost and disconnected. She had visited the kindness tree one afternoon, intending to simply read the notes and leave. But as she read each message of hope and courage, something in her shifted, and she felt an unexpected urge to add her own. Emily's letter described how that single moment of connection had given her the strength to seek help, to reconnect with her family, and to find a sense of purpose. She thanked the Foundation for creating a space where people could feel seen, heard, and valued, and she shared her own pledge to carry Michael's legacy forward by volunteering in her community. As Rose finished reading, the room fell silent, each of them absorbing the impact of Emily's words. They had created something bigger than themselves, something that would live on, even after they were gone. Thomas looked around at the faces of his new family, his heart full of gratitude. The loss of Michael had left a void in his life, but that void had been filled with love, purpose, and the knowledge that his son's legacy would continue to grow, inspiring countless others to live with compassion and courage. In that moment, Thomas knew that the Michael Harper Foundation had not only given him a reason to carry on, but had created a network of lives bound together by kindness, a family united not by blood, but by shared love, and a commitment to change the world for the better. As the fire crackled in the hearth and the snow fell softly outside, they continued to talk, to dream, and to plan. The foundation had become more than a tribute to Michael. It was a living embodiment of his spirit, a reminder that love, even in the face of loss, could create something beautiful and enduring. And so they carried on, each of them bearing Michael's legacy in their hearts, each of them knowing that through their actions, his light would shine on forever. Seeds of a new family. As winter passed, the Michael Harper Foundation continued to grow, touching lives not only in Willow Creek, but in communities far beyond. Thomas, Sarah, Lily, Rose, and Alex found their roles evolving as they took on new responsibilities within the foundation. Each of them brought unique strengths and perspectives, which not only enhanced their work but deepened their bond. The foundation was no longer just an organization to them. It had become a family, one they had built with love, loss, and shared purpose. One brisk spring morning, Thomas woke up with a renewed sense of energy. Today, the foundation was hosting its first Day of Giving event, a large-scale volunteer day inspired by Michael's belief in the power of kindness and community. Volunteers from all over the county were gathering at Willow Creek Park to participate in various community service projects, from cleaning up public spaces to helping families in need with home repairs and yard work. The event was a monumental undertaking, but thanks to the dedication of the team, everything had come together seamlessly. Thomas arrived early at the park, where tents and booths were set up, each one representing a different project. Volunteers bustled around, setting up tables, arranging supplies, and welcoming newcomers. Some wore T-shirts with the foundation's logo, a simple heart with an open hand inside, symbolizing compassion and generosity. The sight filled Thomas with pride, and he couldn't help but feel as if Michael were there with him, guiding each of them towards something greater than themselves. As he helped set up the information booth, he noticed a familiar face in the crowd: John and Maria, Lily and Rose's parents, who had driven down from out of town to volunteer. Despite the distance, they had been an unwavering source of support for the foundation, eager to honor the man who had saved their daughters' lives. Thomas waved them over, his face lighting up with a warm smile. "John, Maria," he greeted them with open arms. "It's so good to see you both." Maria embraced him warmly. "We wouldn't miss this for the world, Thomas. This foundation, it's become a part of us too." John nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Michael gave us our daughters back. It's only right that we do what we can to carry his legacy forward." The three of them spent a few moments in silence, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond that had brought them together. Though they had once been strangers, bound only by a tragedy, they now felt like family, united by love and gratitude. Thomas led them around the event, showing them the different booths and introducing them to other volunteers. By mid-morning, the park was filled with people of all ages, each one ready to participate in the Day of Giving. Sarah and Alex were busy organizing groups, handing out tools and instructions for the day's activities. The energy was infectious, a shared enthusiasm that had drawn people together with a single purpose: to make a difference. Lily and Rose had been assigned to lead a team working on a playground refurbishment in a lower-income neighborhood nearby. The playground had fallen into disrepair over the years, and the community lacked the funds to restore it. Armed with paint, new equipment, and a team of volunteers, the twins were eager to transform it into a vibrant space for children to play and families to gather. As they painted the swing sets and replaced old, rusty slides, local families stopped by to thank them. A group of children watched excitedly from the sidelines, their faces lighting up with anticipation as the playground came to life with color and new equipment. Lily and Rose could see the joy in their eyes, and they felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that they were honoring Michael's memory in a way he would have cherished. One little girl, no more than 7 years old, approached Rose with wide eyes. "Are you making this place better for us?" she asked shyly. Rose crouched down to her level, smiling warmly. "Yes, we are. We want you and your friends to have a fun and safe place to play." The girl's face lit up, and she threw her arms around Rose in a spontaneous hug. "Thank you," she whispered, before running back to join her friends. The simplicity of the moment touched Rose deeply, and she felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She looked over at Lily, who was also watching, her own expression softening with emotion. In that instant, they understood why Michael had risked his life to save them, and why his memory inspired them to keep giving back. Every smile, every grateful hug, every act of kindness, it was a reminder that they could carry his light forward, touching lives as he had touched theirs. Back at the park, Thomas had been assigned to a community garden project. It was a small plot of land the town had donated, and volunteers were working together to plant vegetables, herbs, and flowers. The garden was intended to provide fresh produce to local families who were struggling, as well as to serve as a place for the community to come together and cultivate both plants and friendships. Thomas knelt in the soil, feeling a familiar sense of peace as he dug into the earth. Gardening had always been a quiet refuge for him, a way to connect with the world and find solace in the simple beauty of nature. As he worked alongside the other volunteers, he felt a sense of camaraderie, a shared understanding of what this garden represented, a place of growth, renewal, and hope. He noticed a young man working beside him, his brow furrowed in concentration as he planted rows of tomatoes. They exchanged a few words, and Thomas learned that the man, Lucas, was a single father of 2 young children. He had recently lost his job and was struggling to make ends meet. When he heard about the Foundation's Day of Giving, he had come not only to volunteer but to see if the garden could help provide fresh food for his family. Touched by Lucas's story, Thomas offered him a warm smile. "This garden is for people like you, Lucas. We're here to help each other. Take whatever you need when it's ready." Lucas looked down, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Mr. Harper. It means a lot to know that people care, that we're not alone in this." They continued working side by side, sharing stories and laughter, finding strength in each other's presence. For Thomas, this interaction was a reminder of the Foundation's true purpose: to bridge gaps, to build connections, and to bring people together in times of need. As he watched the plants take root in the soil, he felt a sense of healing, as though each seed planted was a step toward mending his own broken heart. As the day wore on, the various groups finished their projects and began returning to the park for a closing ceremony. Volunteers shared stories of their experiences, each one adding to the collective sense of accomplishment. There was a palpable feeling of unity, a shared pride in what they had achieved together. The Foundation had not only made a difference in the lives of others, it had also created a sense of belonging, a reminder that they were all part of something greater than themselves. Sarah stepped up to the microphone, addressing the crowd with a voice full of gratitude and joy. "Today, we've shown what we can achieve when we come together, when we give without expecting anything in return. Each of you has helped carry forward the legacy of my brother, Michael, and I know he would be incredibly proud of the kindness and generosity you've shown." The crowd applauded, and Sarah continued, "This foundation isn't just about one person. It's about all of us, about creating a community where kindness is the rule, not the exception. And together, I believe we can make a lasting impact, not only here in Willow Creek but beyond." As the crowd dispersed, Thomas, Sarah, Lily, Rose, and Alex gathered together, exhausted but filled with a profound sense of fulfillment. They sat on a park bench, watching the volunteers pack up and families begin to head home, their faces bright with the joy of a day well spent. "I think Michael would have loved this," Thomas said, his voice soft with emotion. "Seeing people come together, making a difference, it's everything he believed in." Lily and Rose nodded, their expressions thoughtful. "He would be proud of you, too, Thomas," Lily said. "You've given so much to this community, more than you'll ever know." Alex leaned forward, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You've given us all a family, Thomas, and that's something none of us could have found on our own." Thomas looked at each of them, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. His life, once filled with the quiet pain of loss, was now brimming with love and purpose. These people, his new family, had helped him find a way to honor Michael's memory, to transform his grief into something beautiful. As they sat together, watching the sun dip below the horizon, a quiet resolve filled the air. They knew that the Michael Harper Foundation was only the beginning, a seed that would continue to grow, nurtured by their love and dedication. The community garden, the scholarships, the kindness tree, the monthly gatherings, each initiative was a testament to Michael's legacy, a reminder that one person's life could touch so many. And as the stars began to twinkle above, they felt a sense of peace, knowing that Michael's spirit would live on, carried forward in every act of kindness, every connection, and every life they touched. The Michael Harper Foundation was more than an organization. It was a reminder that love could heal, that kindness could change the world, and that even in the face of loss, hope could bloom. The legacy beyond generations. As spring gave way to the warmth of summer, the Michael Harper Foundation continued to flourish, becoming a beacon of compassion and unity in Willow Creek and beyond. The Foundation's initiatives now extended across neighboring towns, and news of its mission was beginning to attract national attention. Local news stations covered the Day of Giving event, and a renowned magazine reached out to feature the Foundation's story in a spread dedicated to community-driven change. For Thomas, Sarah, Lily, Rose, and Alex, the growth of the Foundation was both humbling and inspiring. They had set out to honor Michael's legacy, but in doing so, they had created something far larger than any of them could have imagined. One quiet morning, Thomas sat on the porch of his cottage, watching the world awaken as the sun cast a warm glow over Willow Creek. His garden was blooming, vibrant with the colors of roses, sunflowers, and wild herbs, a project he and Michael had started years ago, before life had taken its unexpected turns. Tending to this garden had always brought him peace, a solace he could only find in nurturing life from the soil. This morning, however, was different. He was reflecting on the path the Foundation had taken and the future he wanted it to have. He found himself thinking about how the Foundation could continue to thrive, even after he was no longer here to guide it. Thomas's health had begun to decline, a reality he accepted with grace, feeling fulfilled in knowing he had spent his days honoring Michael's memory. But as he looked out at the garden, he realized that, just like the flowers he planted each spring, the Foundation would need new caretakers, people who would continue to nurture it and ensure it blossomed for years to come. It was then that Thomas decided to call a special meeting, inviting Sarah, Lily, Rose, Alex, and even John and Maria to discuss the Foundation's future. That evening, they all gathered in Thomas's living room, a place that had become the heart of their shared journey. Photographs of Michael adorned the walls, and the air was filled with a sense of purpose, as if Michael himself were present, silently cheering them on. Thomas cleared his throat, his voice soft but steady. "I want to thank each of you for being here and for everything you've done to make this Foundation what it is today. I know that none of this would be possible without your dedication and love, but I've been thinking about the future, about how we can ensure the Foundation will live on." The room fell silent as his words sank in. Sarah, who had always been attuned to her father's thoughts, reached out and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Dad, whatever you're thinking, we're here for you. This Foundation, it's a part of us now. It's part of Michael, part of all of us." Thomas smiled, his heart swelling with pride for his daughter. I know, Sarah, and I'm incredibly grateful. I've been thinking that it might be time to formalize the Foundation's leadership, something that would ensure it continues, not just as a tribute to Michael, but as a living, breathing community effort. He turned to Lily and Rose, who were listening intently, their expressions filled with understanding. Lily, Rose, you have carried Michael's legacy in a way that has moved me deeply. Your commitment to honoring him and giving back has been a light in my life, and I believe you both should play a leading role in the Foundation moving forward. Lily, taken aback by his words, glanced at Rose, her eyes misting with emotion. Thomas, we would be honored. This Foundation has given us a purpose beyond ourselves, and we want to carry Michael's spirit forward in every way we can. Thomas nodded, his gaze shifting to Alex. And Alex, you've brought an incredible energy to this Foundation, a sense of hope and compassion that embodies Michael's legacy. Your commitment to becoming a doctor, to helping others as he would have, has inspired us all. I'd like you to join them, to ensure that this Foundation carries forward not only Michael's kindness, but also his courage. Alex's voice was choked with emotion as he responded, I would be honored, Thomas. Michael's sacrifice has shaped my life in ways I can't put into words, and this Foundation has become a part of me. I'll do everything I can to keep it alive. With the leadership team established, Thomas shared his vision for a Foundation structure that would enable them to expand their reach, build new programs, and secure resources to keep their initiatives running smoothly. They discussed plans to establish a permanent headquarters in Willow Creek, a place that would serve as both a community center and an educational hub, offering workshops on kindness, empathy, and community service. The vision was ambitious, but each of them felt a sense of certainty, as if this was the natural next step in Michael's legacy. Over the next few months, they worked tirelessly to bring this vision to life. Thomas, despite his declining health, remained deeply involved, attending meetings, mentoring Lily, Rose, and Alex, and sharing his wisdom with the next generation of Foundation leaders. The community rallied behind them, volunteering time, resources, and expertise to help make the headquarters a reality. Willow Creek businesses donated materials, local artisans offered to decorate the space, and townsfolk volunteered to help with everything from construction to organizing events. By autumn, the headquarters was ready, a modest but beautiful building located near Willow Creek Park. The walls were adorned with artwork created by local students, many of whom had been inspired by the Foundation's work. A large mural on one wall depicted a tree with leaves representing acts of kindness, each one bearing the name of a person whose life had been touched by the Foundation. At the center of the mural was Michael's name, surrounded by the names of Lily, Rose, Alex, and countless others who had become part of this legacy of love. The opening ceremony was held on a bright, crisp day in October, and the entire community gathered to celebrate. Families, friends, and strangers alike filled the building, exploring the classrooms, community spaces, and gardens that had been lovingly designed to foster connection and learning. The kindness tree, once a simple oak adorned with notes, had been recreated in the main hall, where visitors could leave messages and read the stories of those who had been impacted by the Foundation's work. Thomas, dressed in his best suit, looked around the room with a sense of awe and fulfillment. Sarah stood by his side, holding his arm as they greeted guests and shared stories. She could see how much this moment meant to him, how it was the culmination of years of heartache, love, and dedication. When the time came for Thomas to speak, he stepped up to the podium, his heart filled with gratitude for the community that had embraced him, his family, and Michael's legacy. Thank you all for being here today, he began, his voice wavering slightly but filled with warmth. When we started this Foundation, it was born from grief, from a longing to honor my son, Michael, but it has grown into something far greater than any of us could have imagined. It has become a testament to the power of kindness, to the strength we find in each other, and to the legacy one life can leave behind. He paused, looking around the room at the faces of those who had become his family. Michael may no longer be with us, but his spirit is alive in each of you. In every act of compassion, in every life touched, he lives on. And as long as we continue to carry forward his values, to build connections, to give back, we will keep his memory alive. The crowd applauded, some wiping away tears as Thomas finished his speech. For him, this was a moment of closure, a passing of the torch to the next generation of foundation leaders. He knew that Lily, Rose, Alex, and Sarah would carry forward the work he had begun, and he felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that Michael's legacy was in capable and loving hands. After the ceremony, Thomas took a quiet moment alone, stepping outside to look at the headquarters from a distance. The building, nestled among the trees and surrounded by gardens, seemed to glow in the autumn light. He closed his eyes, feeling the gentle breeze brush against his face, and for a fleeting moment, he could almost feel Michael's presence beside him, a comforting, silent assurance that his son was proud, that he was watching over them. As the months passed, Thomas's health continued to decline, but he remained a cherished presence within the foundation, mentoring and guiding the team with his wisdom and kindness. And even as he faced the end of his own journey, he took comfort in the knowledge that Michael's legacy would live on, that the foundation would continue to grow, touching lives, inspiring kindness, and building connections for generations to come. In his final days, surrounded by his family and friends, Thomas found peace in knowing that he had fulfilled his promise to Michael. He had transformed his grief into love, his loss into a gift that would continue to bloom long after he was gone. After his passing, the Michael Harper Foundation honored Thomas's life with a special memorial, attended by people from all across the country whose lives had been touched by the foundation's work. They remembered him not only as a loving father and friend, but as a man who had dedicated his life to building a legacy of kindness, one that would live on through each of them. As the years went by, the foundation continued to flourish under the leadership of Sarah, Lily, Rose, and Alex. They expanded their programs, built partnerships with other organizations, and inspired communities around the world to create their own initiatives, each one dedicated to spreading kindness, compassion, and hope. And each year, on the anniversary of Michael's passing, they gathered at the foundation's headquarters to celebrate his life, to share stories of the impact he had made, and to renew their commitment to his legacy.